Take your CJ7 all the way to 11. Jeepin' with Cool Guy.
Guess what? Another episode of Jeepin' with Cool Guy. Now that we've got everything off the front here, we're going to move on to the heater box and the vents. Let's start with this. Defrost. Like that? Watch that. That's pretty cool. All that rust that just comes out of there. That's great. So these are made out of plastic, the vents themselves, and since the screws are screwed into the plastic, I want to make sure I use something that doesn't have a whole lot of torque, so that's why I'm going with the Phillips head screwdriver. This seems to be fairly easy to do. Mine's just dropping out quickly and easily because the vent stuff has, or the whatever you call this stuff, I don't know, has worn through, been cut off, and that will need to be replaced. I'm going to guess that the next step is we take the fresh air vent, and we've already taken the vent off earlier in a previous episode. These screws, there's 4 of them in each corner, are apparently specialty screws. They have a certain type of thread to them. I want to be very careful with these. Hopefully yours haven't rusted out like mine have. That's great. Okay, well, nothing I can do about it. I don't know, maybe they're all just like that. Seem kind of short. Yeah, looks like they're just kind of short. I thought they were a little bit more intense than that, but mine are pretty well worn. I have to figure out what to do about that. So this is just held in with a rubber gasket, almost seal, that mine has crumbled through, so I'm going to have to figure out how to wedge that out very carefully. Next up, let's try and take out the heater tubes. Probably going to want something to drain these into. I don't know, let's just see what happens. I finally remember what these things are called. This is called the heater core. You know, I'm going to get a towel. Let me get a towel real quick. Okay, towel's in place. Yeah, I'm starting to see a little bit of leak there. Huh. And there she blows! I think the only way to avoid doing that is to, because I've already drained the coolant out, is to take the water pump off first. But, okay, I don't see any other way around it. Next one. That one's going to run for a few seconds, apparently. That would have been smart. Start with that. That's better. Let that drain for a few seconds. Let's make removing the battery tray part of the process. Apparently there's a nut on the other side. Forgot to say something about this earlier, but these are 1/2-inch bolts. Who knew? On a Jeep. That's crazy. At least they were consistent. I'll give them that. It's good stuff. Makes it a lot easier to take all this stuff apart. Well, that wasn't rusty. Hopefully last nut right here underneath the battery tray. Kind of a pain in the butt to get to. Okay, I've given up on removing the battery tray for now. We'll get to that later. This nut underneath here is too rusted on. Too much of a pain in the butt. So let's move on to something else. Let's try the heater drain tube. Well, that's attractive. One thing that I'm learning with the Jeep is if it's too complicated, then you're not doing it right, because these Jeeps are not complicated. So I'm going to try something different because that wasn't working. I think that the fresh airflow is sealed in by a double-sided heavy-duty tape. And I'm thinking that all I need to do is just wedge that out. You want to be careful so that you don't bend the actual metal of the cowl, the fresh air intake. But I think that this is the way to go. Yeah, there we go. Can you hear that? Yep. think we're getting there. Break that seal. You're going to get to a certain point and you will be able to pull it down. Well, kind of like that, but a little bit lighter. Okay, nothing like brute force. I am not exactly a man of grace tonight, so sorry about that. Finding something real quick. There is a connecting cable for the vent latch here that connects to the side of the heater box down here. Okay, what do I do with my screwdriver? Anybody know where my screwdriver went? Where'd my screwdriver go? Really? That comes off real simply by pushing it out with the screwdriver. These are all of the fasteners that hold the cables on throughout the entire heater box assembly. Yeah. Wow, that was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Okay, once you get that piece popped off, it's a little looped wire. There you have your air intake. But here's what I've discovered. There's a little nut and bolt here, little nut. There's one right behind this battery tray support and right above the heater core tubes. There's one down below the battery tray. And then there's one right behind the valve cover that you have to get in there with a wrench. I would recommend getting one of the ones with the ratcheting heads because it took me half an hour just going like this. Lots of fun. And all of these nuts are 7/16 in size. They have star washers on the back of them. So these two right here have rusted through, or have rusted, and I can't get them off, and they stripped on the other side, so I'm going to just cut them off. Okay, finally got them all cut off. Yay, took that one out. Took that one out with the use of my rotary tool. Exhausting, tiring, big reveal. Woohoo! Why am I wearing a mask? Well, that's a whole bunch of mouse junk all over the top of that stuff, and I don't want to be breathing in whatever that mouse had. So, here we go. Apparently there is a connection wire, power wire for the heater blower motor that you have to unhook. Here's your connection wire right here. It's a simple pull and plug. All you need to do is separate them out. At this point, I'm kind of finding this comical. There is a drainage port that goes out the back right underneath the blower motor. Don't know what it's connected to or what it's supposed to be connected to. It's got a little clamp, pressure clamp on it. This hose comes out the back, connected to, I don't know if it's the drainage for the heater or whatever it may be. It could be air conditioning. But it's held in by, as you can tell, a rusted through clamp. Goes on just like that, so I had to break that off, take that off. Then I had to take this off with a pair of vice grips because this is so rusted on, it wasn't coming off. Hopefully this is it. Optimistic thinking. Oh, yay! I'll show you what I was talking about. Right here is where that hose was connected through the firewall. It was like that, but this thing's so rusted out. All of this is going to need to be replaced. Make sure you keep your connections. Have to figure out what I'm going to do about these screws because these are the ones that I cut off. Probably going to have to go into the box to replace these. That's perfectly fine because I need to open this thing up anyways. And that would be the next set for this. How do you take apart the heater box?